Hokage I can fully level up with one click. Chapter 601 to 616. Chapter 601 The Great Crisis Strikes. Sister Shachi, you really raised me high. Chinyu glanced at him, and the ashen-faced K-Rockdoll said, this time, it was just a fluke. As for the Navy headquarters, it was blind and asked me to be an instructor. But the things I asked for, Miss Shachi, you won't forget it, right? 7 days ago, he learned from Garp's mouth that Bond Ward, the world destroyer, was besieged by the Navy headquarters. Unfortunately, there is no way to find the exact trace information. It's been 7 days now, and I don't know if Wald was ambushed by the Navy. Then Chinyu's coveted Gulosik was a waste. It seems that my little brother has a great plan. Shachi breathed out a long mouthful of smoke and said, however, this time you are lucky. I got important information just now. 3 days later, the Navy headquarters and Chihuahai joined forces. In the first half of the Great Waterway, Welsh Sea Area, encircle and suppress Wald. If you have any ideas, I advise you to do it early. I think the Navy headquarters is determined to win this time. Wales Sea. Chinyu raised his brows. He remembered that this sea area was not too far from Alabasta. Captain, I have seen this area in the nautical chart provided by Alabasta. Nami said suddenly. It seems that it only takes 2.5 days from the small garden. I will record the hour hand here. Looking at the recording hour hand in Nami's hand, Chinyu couldn't help but smile, intending to reach out and rub Nami's head. However, as soon as he reached out halfway, his brows couldn't help frowning. Boom. A sound of breaking water came from the sea. Soon I saw a black shadow in the outer sea, breaking the water and rushing out directly. The huge body of tens of meters came in a rolling posture, and the sea water it brought up was like a torrential rain. This is an island-eating beast. Nami exclaimed. 7 days ago, the island-eating beast with a body length of 1,000 meters made her almost incontinent. If Chinyu hadn't acted at the critical moment, I'm afraid she would have been frightened already. HMPH, isn't it just a fish that slipped through the net? Get out of here. In K-Rockdal's mouth. Shachi's remarks just now made him angry for a long time. Especially during this time, looking at those little ghosts and juniors, they shouted every day to learn two-color domineering. He could only stare at him. This kind of suffocation was all poured into self-exploration by K-Rockdal. However, this emotional self-exploration undoubtedly makes this road narrower and narrower. And, 7 days passed. Apart from staring, K-Rockdal could only look at one by one, and he had already touched the threshold. Even Daz, who usually participates in the advanced assassination mission in the Ba Rock Work Club, seemed to have some eyebrows a few days ago. On the other hand, as the former boss, he even had the strength to suckle, and he was still at a loss. Lord K-Rockdal, be careful. Daz roared in a hurry. Let the absent K-Rockdal react suddenly. The first to see, is a familiar figure. Armament Haki, which was as black as ink, spread out on the arm, and finally formed a layer of superficial domineering. Looking at the incoming, dozens of meters of island-eating beasts, Daz did not hesitate at all, raised his hand and slashed down. Black Knife Wu Chen Slash. The black light flashed vertically, swiftly swept past like a thunderbolt. The speed is so fast that the island-eating beast cannot react at all. Directly cut the huge body of dozens of meters in two. Boom. The broken corpse was smashed on the sea, and the blood that was brought up was splashed and splashed, making the whole sea area suddenly full of blood. Lord K-Rockdal, are you all right? Daz threw himself on K-Rockdal's side. The black light on his arms made K-Rockdal feel inexplicably heartbroken. This is his old little brother. Now it has surpassed him and has Armament Haki in control. Krokdar, I was just barely able to perform Armament Haki yesterday, Daz noticed Crocdar's gaze and quickly explained. For Daz, he never imagined that according to Chin Yu's training method, he would be able to wake up the domineering arrogance lurking in his body so quickly. If this method, once spread, will be crazy for any force. However, this method is called a shortcut by Chin Yu, and the degree of danger is also not small. If there is no tenacious will and a lot of combat experience, I am afraid that if you have not succeeded, you will become an idiot. It can be said that this is a 9-death approach. Shut up, a mere island-eating beast, do you think it can hurt me? Rockdal roared. The next moment, the scene that caught his eye made his pupils shrink suddenly. In the sea in the distance, a huge black shadow is rapidly emerging, and the surrounding sea water seems to be stirred by an invisible big hand. A pair of eyes, like the moon like Yuhi, quickly lit up. That feeling is enough to penetrate the soul. If we say that the island-eating beast just now is several tens of meters, then the current island-eating beasts can be described as 10,000 meters. Are they waiting for it? Rockdal's expression changed suddenly, and he hurriedly looked at the two giants behind him. It's finally here. Dongli and Brokey suddenly opened their eyes. The sluggish atmosphere that had been there was gone in an instant. At this moment, the two of them seemed to return to the giant poses of the sea 100 years ago. Roar! A low roar burst like thunder. The 10,000-meter island-eating beast originally lurking in the sea, a pair of gorilla Yuhi's eyes, instantly locked on Chin Yu and others. As the overlord of the sea who has been entrenched in the small garden for a long time, he was beheaded by Chin Yu not long ago, but he was only a junior. It is the 10,000-meter island-eating beast that has been lurking and living for a long time in front of the eyes of the merchant ships and even the pirates. In one bite, it can swallow a small island, which is its true attitude. Boom! The huge body was turned out directly in the sea. The 10,000-meter posture gives people a feeling of covering the sky and the sun. The rolled-up sea water gives people a gesture like a raging tide. That feeling was like a tsunami of level 12, rolling over in the distant sea area. It can be said that if this blow, once it hits directly, is waiting for them, not to mention the destruction of the ship. I am afraid that even this small garden will be shattered. Oh my God, is this an island-eating beast? Captain, hurry up and think of a way. Nami's feet and belly were chattering. However, if Chin Yu told her that there was a large amount of gold in the stomach of this island-eating beast, it would be another story. Chapter 602 The Power of Giants is so terrifying. Don't worry, watch the show well. Chin Yu patted Nami on the shoulder and smiled genially. Go to a play. Nami was stunned, and now she can't wait to pass out happily. At least this scene is not beautiful. A little careless, waiting for them, but swallowed. Rockdale's face suddenly became difficult to look at. In his eyes, Chin Yu had already killed the biggest island-eating beast. Then the next time you go out to sea, it will be tens of meters, or even 100 meters. Case of an island-eating beast with a kilometer, Rockdale is also confident that he can kill it in one blow. However, the head in front of him is close to 10,000 meters, reminding the existence of a huge island. If you let him kill it, I'm afraid it will feel like a mayfly shaking the tree. He considers himself extraordinary, and also has a powerful natural devil fruit ability. However, when the opponent's size reaches a certain level, skill becomes unimportant. At least, at this moment, Rockdale has no confidence in his heart. When he saw that Chin Yu was indifferent, his nerves tightened even more. He never imagined that in the face of such a huge island-eating beast, Chin Yu would put his chips on the two giants. It can be said that at this moment Chin Yu seems to be verifying whether his eyes are old. Roar! The 10,000-meter island-eating beast was the first to lose his breath. When the roar sounded again, the huge body moved. At the moment when the huge wave suddenly overturned, the body of 10,000 meters, like a huge sharp blade, directly tore the sea open. The monstrous waves brought up, before the impact came, the entire estuary shook violently. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Urgent gaze, when swept across Chinyu's body, suddenly locked on the bodies of the two giants. Go! The thunderous drink gushed out from Dongli's mouth. With a deafening stance, it rolled and dispersed. Brokey, who had already held his breath for a long time, responded instantly. As the strongest partners in the past, their tacit understanding and actions can be called synchronization. Boom! Step out! The whole small garden seemed to be in an earthquake. Two huge bodies are shaking the earth. Armament Hokage, which was as black as ink, quickly spread across the two of them. The steel-like color made the originally sharp-edged aura suddenly climb to ultimate. Coupled with the height of dozens of meters, under the flickering sunlight, it stands here like a huge iron tower. Facing so many gazes, Dongli and Brokey didn't show any fancy, and suddenly clenched their weapons with both hands and fingers. Armament Hokage wrapped around his body turned into a wave in the next moment, pouring into the weapon. Formed a Sakura-like Uzumaki posture. The pitch-black blade and the huge aura that circulated were crazily compressed on the weapon by Dongli and Brokey. There was a stagnation in the air circulating around. Dongli and Brokey raised their heads abruptly, their hawk-like gazes instantly locked on the 10,000-meter island-eating beast that struck from the sky. Without any fancy, tense fingers, hands and even the muscles of the whole body, bulged like a rock. The next moment, with the right foot as the fulcrum, the tower-like body suddenly turned up and down under the sound of crackling bones. Lu Ying Bagwo Wushwang. Boom. As soon as it was hit, the movements of the two giants were almost synchronized. The entire space seemed to be penetrated in an instant. The jet-black air wave impacted like a furious wave, tearing apart the space. Wherever he passed, huge ripples were stirred in the air, and the sea along the way seemed to be torn apart by an invisible big hand. At this moment, it feels like doomsday. Roar! The huge body of the island eater suddenly froze. Looking at the rapidly expanding attack in the pupils, the huge body of 10,000 meters, under the frantic squirming, has to dodge first, which is simply impossible. The only thing that can be done is to watch the pitch-black airflow like a savage dragon in the sky. With a destructive posture, it directly enlarges in the pupil. Boom! A dull thunderous roar exploded. Under the impact of the huge air wave, a large swath of seawater was set off, forming a monstrous rainstorm. The pitch-black slash, with a tenacious posture, stabbed its head on the chest and abdomen of the island-eating beast. The snow-white belly was just a little support, and the next moment it was smashed into pieces. Yuhi splashed like a tidal wave, and a large piece of flesh and blood collapsed between the heavens and the earth. The 10,000-meter island-eating beast smashed its head into the sea with a mournful roar. The torn sea lost its support and collided like two invisible big hands. The huge body of the 10,000-meter island-eating beast was directly submerged. On the huge sea surface, the water waves were surging, and the blood of the orangutan Yuhi lingered for a moment or three. A pungent bloody smell filled the air. Looking at the large mess in front of them, the people present couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. He looked at the two giants in disbelief. They have long known that giants have extraordinary strength. However, I didn't expect it at all, after casting the high armament Hokage Ryuzakura. The combined blow of Dongli and Brokey can directly kill the huge island-eating beast. If the shot fell on them, or in the small garden, the consequences are simply terrifying. The wrath of giants can destroy a country. This is no joke. Haha, the feeling of fighting is really cool. This is the heroic appearance of our giants. Dongli laughed and put the weapon directly on his shoulder. Looking back, after living on the island for hundreds of years, he turned over and sat on the raft. HMPH, if it wasn't for the captain's personal guidance, you old guy would have been cowardly facing this island-eating beast that has been entrenched for 100 years. Brokey glared disdainfully. They fought decisively for hundreds of years, but they also hunted for food. I also know a little about this island-eating beast that is entrenched in the sea and intends to hunt giants. I have also played against it, but unfortunately it has not been fruitful. It wasn't until 100 years later, when the master mastered the high-level and domineering Liu Ying, that he was able to kill it in one blow. However, it is precisely because of this reason that they clearly understand the power of this two-color domineering. Haha, you can perform such a domineering blow, you can't do it with my guidance alone. Qin Yu laughed dryly. Your rich combat experience and hundreds of years of duels have allowed you to maintain your physical fitness to a peak state. You can only achieve this level with a lot of accumulation. The last crisis has also been eliminated, it is not too early, and it is time for us to go to sea. For Tori and Brockie, it was possible to get to this point. Qin Yu was not surprised. After all, this was the strongest giant who had been rewarded with a reward of over 100 million 100 years ago. The strength and means possessed are completely unmatched by ordinary giants. Even the current giant rookie Hireding is not as good as 5 or 6/10 of him. Chapter 603 Hancock's Crisis. Uncle Dongley, Uncle Brokey, do you want to join our Straw Hat Pirates? That blow just now was so cool. Luffy rushed to Dongley's shoulder. Both eyes were glowing with fiery starlight. For Luffy, the first condition for what he can bring on board is to be different. Luffy, the teacher is watching, you dare to dig the crew in public, be careful I cut you. Zoro bit back and bit the word Hidao. In the hands of the 3 generations of ghosts and snow, there was a trace of dark armament hockey, and they tried their best to spread to the blade. It's a pity that this domineering just spread a few centimeters, and it was obvious that he was exhausted and directly misfired. In the end, under the watchful eyes of the public, it collapsed between heaven and earth. Che, you green algae head, don't get an axe here. Sanji glared disdainfully, and immediately screamed. Nami-san, leave this kind of heavy lifting to me. Teacher, I don't seem to understand domineering. I want to stay on this ship as a trainee crew for life. You bastard, I have to hack you to death. Looking at the situation that suddenly became noisy, Qin Yu touched the tip of his nose helplessly. For him, the current guidance is entirely to cause turmoil in the world faster. Only by doing so can he better regain his power. What's more, the lively point is also quite good. Okay, everyone set sail and headed to the Wells Sea. Qin Yu retracted his thoughts and turned to give orders. However, the first thing that came into view was an unexpected figure. Qin Yu, I want to learn two-color domineering. K-Rockdoll stood in front of Qin Yu. Looking at this young man who was a little younger than himself, this kind of asking for advice almost suffocated him to death. If the 2 giants didn't kill the island-eating beasts strongly, he might still insist on his stubbornness. However, the blow that was like destroying the world just now not only killed the island-eating beast, but also shattered the last self-esteem and stubbornness in his heart. The face of this blow, K-Rockdoll believed that even with the aura of Chiwahai's glory, he would not be able to retreat. Now think about it, if the target of the hit is yourself. The spine is still chilling. Haha, you stubborn little brat, are you finally convinced? Dongley laughed uncontrollably. You should call the captain a teacher first. Brokey and I add up, but we are more than 300 years old, so much older than you. In order to become stronger, we have not put our face aside. The strong, but there is no distinction between before and after, but you remember. Rolling laughter, mixed with a sense of preaching. If it was normal, K-Rockdoll would have been violent and beaten. However, What Dongli said this time was not wrong. Chinyu's teaching achievements are obvious to all. What's more, the young man in front of him is a talent that even Marshal Sengoku of the Navy headquarters and chief instructor of the recruits Zephyr like. Watching other people improve rapidly step by step, and pretending to be full of unimportant things, that is his loss. Hee, no need, you won't be treated differently for the sake of effectiveness. The most important thing is that you are willing. Chinyu patted Rock Doll's shoulder. Fairy tale, but it's not important to drag the oil bottle. Dusky, next you guide him to the basics. Me. Dusky was stunned for a moment. For a long time, in her eyes, Chiwahai was an unattainable existence. Usually encountered in the sea, but also to hide and prey, do not be stared at. He never thought that one day he would guide Chiwahai. However, looking at Chinyu's unmistakable expression, Dasichi hesitated, but then she bit Kiba and nodded in agreement. Faced with this decision, Kei Rockdoll was a little surprised, but since he broke his own limitations and asked Chinyu to know about the practice of two-color domineering, this is enough to show that he even sacrificed his face. What's more, compared with those hairy boys from Sauron, Dusky is undoubtedly a better choice. Haha, Captain, it seems that you really have a way of regaining people's hearts. Dongli laughed loudly, and after taking a sip of wine into his mouth, he said, however, Captain, didn't you say that our giant clan also has some problems? Is it a good seedling? It's that brat Ural, John. Dongli, you forgot, is there another kid named Lonzi? Roki echoed with a laugh. Seeing these two voices twitching, the two giants burst into deafening laughter. Chinyu reluctantly took out his cochlea and said, the John and Longs you mentioned, if I guess correctly, they should be the two lieutenant generals of the Navy headquarters now. The former naval headquarters, but through the hands of the nun Carmelite, secretly sold many giants to make up for the strength of the Navy. Among them, there are a few giants who have entered the middle and high level of the Navy. Oh, they turned out to be from the Navy. Then we pirates have no heirs. Dongli couldn't help frowning. After leaving for 100 years, it is not to say that it is not good for the younger generation to be in the Navy. However, 100 years ago, their giant pirate group became a famous legend in Elbaf. In this sea, it is also very famous. If suddenly there are no giants as pirates now, then their giant pirate group, has it become a shame? Hee, don't worry, I remember a giant named Hyerding, who should have formed a new giant pirate group to enter the sea. As for the specific situation, I don't know. Chinyu touched the tip of his nose and remembered the original book, Join Helding in the Straw Hat Fleet. Helding, is that the kid who always wears a bullhorn hat? When we left the port for the last time, that guy was haunting us. He insisted on becoming the strongest pirate and surpassing us. Roki froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. However, a Byakugan from Tori soon came. That's Hersey, is your memory wrong? What's wrong? It's your brain that's getting old. You say I'm degraded, I'm going to fight you. Looking at the two giants who were about to fight again, Chinyu glanced helplessly, frowned, and took out a restless life card with his backhand. He remembered that this life card was something that Hancock gave him after escaping from the Chambord Islands. According to the magnitude of the vibration and the reaction, it means that Hancock is not far away from him. At the same time, there may be danger. What happened to the captain? Dongli glanced at it and said anxiously. As soon as these words fell, they instantly attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 604-Crazy Walled. Boom. The thunder-like explosion sounded resoundingly, and the blast wave that was set off rolled back like a frenzy. The sea, which was not calm at first, suddenly set off a big wave. The pirate ship in it, like a flat boat, became unstable, as if it would capsize at any time. Hancock, why don't you send out a distress signal quickly? The Navy is chasing this lunatic. Granny Za, leaning on a cane, reluctantly stood up and suggested urgently. Looking at the huge island-like ship that was chasing more than a dozen nautical miles behind him, his face turned pale. Half a day ago, they received the signal of the meeting point from the Navy, and they planned to rush to the past. I never thought that I would meet the madman Bundy Wald, the world destroyer, in the middle. In the face of ultra-long-range cannonballs, there is also a 100-fold increase in Momo's fruit. It can be said that whether it is escaping or chasing, it is impossible to get rid of the huge pirate ship in front of him. It's been a nightmare for anyone being targeted. You bastard, you actually asked the concubine to ask the Navy for help. Hancock's face turned cold, and he shouted in a rush, if this matter spreads, will the concubine still have a face like Chihuahua? In the future, I am afraid that I will not only become a laughing stock among pirates, but how do the Navy headquarters, and even the world government view me? Can an old guy who is dying can really take me down? What's more, everyone will forgive me when my concubine decides, because I am the most beautiful. The cold voice echoed on the huge deck. Facing Hancock's rebuttal, all the female warriors had already cast their fanatical gazes. Lord Hancock is right. Even if we die in battle, we will never ask the Navy headquarters for help. We are Chihuahua. For the reputation of Lady Empress, we will definitely be able to defeat these rude people. Looking at Hancock, who mobilized the emotions of all the staff, his mother-in-law suddenly became angry. Mother-in-law, my elder sister is right. We can become Chihuahua because we have the ability to make the Navy headquarters and even the world government jealous. If we ask for help now, it means compromise. In the future, we will have no right to speak in front of the Navy headquarters. Sonia said in a deep voice. Let's do it now according to your elder sister's idea. I agree too. Godrew also nodded in agreement. Okay, you can do what you say, don't blame me for not persuading you. Granny clenched the crutches in her hand, stomped on the deck, and turned around angrily and left. Looking at this scene, Hancock couldn't help but snorted coldly, an old woman who gets in the way. All the staff gave me orders. Since he is chasing after him, he will fight back fiercely. I will sink them and let the world know that what the Navy headquarters can't do, our 9 snake pirates can do it. Quote. Lord Hancock is right, let's kill. For the 9 snakes, for Lord Hancock, let's kill. The hysterical screams of killing suddenly spread throughout the huge sea area. The 2 sea snakes that had been pulling the pirate ship and fled in a hurry, stopped abruptly, then turned around and went to the Gulaseki, which was chasing after them, and went in a roundabout way. The violent scene made Wald, who was standing on the center deck of the Gulaseki, on the ship's cannon, startled at first, and then burst into laughter. Walolo, I didn't expect this so-called Chihuahua, gave up running away, and planned to fight me instead. Let me take a good look at the capabilities of the world government's lackey, the so-called Chihuahua. Brother Bingjack, prepare ships and cannons for me. I want them to know that the ward pirates are not something they can provoke. Crazy laughter echoed on the huge deck. As the vice captain of the ward pirates, Bingjack, who is also Ward's elder brother, has long been old and frail, and has been leaning on a bottle all the year round. Looking at the unscrupulous Walder, he couldn't help saying, Wald, according to the information, the naval headquarters is still chasing us. Now, we shouldn't waste time here. If the naval headquarters, like last time, forms an encirclement, I'm afraid there will be no second storm and let us get out of trouble. What's more, with your current physical strength, it's probably too much of a burden to control this Guloziaki for a long time. As a product of the old times, at the age of 45, Wald was conspired by the alliance of the Navy and pirates, and was sent to the advanced city prison. In the 6th layer, it is frozen. This kind of treatment was even stricter than the Golden Lion sent to the 6th floor at that time. After all, in the sea at that time, the Golden Lion was unscrupulous, but not as crazy as Wald. Whether it is the Navy, or the pirates, even the dragon people, and some islands blocking the road will be destroyed by him. According to Wald, there is absolutely nothing in the way that can hinder his pace. However, that kind of arrogance and domineering is the product of more than 30 years ago. After a long period of freezing, Wald's appearance did not look much older. But the real age has reached 78 years old. It takes a long time to use Momo's fruit ability to speed up the Guloziaki. The burden is not that he is now, and his old body can completely ignore it. I still plan to use the ship's cannon. The pressure that will be endured has been infinitely magnified. Once at this juncture, encountering a sniper from the Navy headquarters, it will undoubtedly make things worse. You bastard, what do you mean? I have been eliminated from this era, should I obediently hide? Walder roared with a sullen face. If you don't go, old man, then I will come by myself. Leaving these words, Wald swayed, shaving directly, past Bing Jack, and appeared behind the ship's cannon. When the big hand slapped the huge ship's cannon, the low-pitched turning sound of the gears resounded. Wald, seeing this, Bing Jack looked anxious. Go away, don't stand in my way, I'm going to sink them all, even if I come, I won't be able to stop me. Walder roared again and again. The huge gun barrel, under the rotation of the gear, was instantly locked on the 9 snake pirates who were approaching fast in the distance. Witnessing this scene, a frantic smile appeared on Walder's face. Haha, with this ship's cannon, I'll see how you approach me. Today, I'll let you taste what it's like to sink the sea. Momo fruit, a 50-fold increase. Along with the roar, Wald slapped the ship's cannon with his right hand. When the low metal collision sounded, the huge fruit power, like a frenzy, poured into the ship's cannon. Chapter 605-Scary Ship Cannon. The pitch-black cannons of ships are more than 10 meters large. Compared with other ship-borne cannons, and even special cannons in the naval headquarters, it is obviously more than 10 times different. Of course, it's not that the Navy headquarters can't make it. It's just that the larger the volume of the shell, the stronger the driving force required, the worse the accuracy, and the smaller the maneuverability. At the same time, with the current artillery technology, the range that can be achieved is also infinitely reduced. Once the oversized cannonball is detonated, then waiting for them, I am afraid it will also bring disaster to myself. Therefore, this special cannon can only be used when Wald casts the Momo fruit. The huge black gun barrel was slowly erected, and when the shooting trajectory was adjusted, it was instantly locked on the sea area where the 9 snake pirates were. 7 or 8 nautical miles, you can still clearly see this exaggerated cannon. Sister, what exactly is this thing? Can such a huge artillery fire reach the sea area where we are? Sonia couldn't help but asked. In the face of this unknown attack method, it is a worry for anyone. Hancock's face also sank suddenly. As a battle-hardened veteran, she is conceited. However, the combat experience is also a lot. What's more, as the Empress of 9 Snake Island, who is prevalent in domineering use, her use of 3-color domineering is stronger than that of ordinary pirates. When she saw the cannon of this ship, an inexplicable feeling of anxiety flashed in her heart. In the face of the cruel words thrown just now, his face sank, and he clenched his teeth and shouted, "Stop chasing in a straight line, immediately switch to roundabout tactics, and try to get rid of the danger of aiming at this artillery channel." I know my elder sister. Gadru, who was at the helm, heard the words and reacted instantly. For other pirate ships, and even warships, this sudden turn-like operation may be difficult. Hafong energy, the 9 snake pirate ship also has kinetic energy from sea snakes. As long as the order is issued, it is not without problems to turn in an instant. Oh, you actually know how to turn, do you want to avoid my edge? Walder let out a small sigh, and then laughed horribly. Haha, You girl, it seems that you are aware of the greatness of the ship's cannon that I have carefully crafted. However, you underestimated the power of Wald, the destroyer of my world. Today I will see how you can hide as the prey I am aiming for. Boom. The huge ship's cannon made a low sound of gear bites, and finally the artillery channel was instantly settled. The madness on Wald's face, who witnessed this scene, became brighter and brighter, and the moment his eyes were on the Nine Snakes pirate ship, the long-awaited blow suddenly detonated. Little girl, try the blow I carefully prepared for you. The current Wald is not comparable in 30 years. Momo fruit 50 times. Boom. The thunder-like shelling sound detonated without warning. The violent air wave brought the impact force, causing the huge gun barrel to push back quickly. The wind and waves set off, even Bing Jack couldn't stand, and fell directly to the ground. However, in the face of all this, Bing Jack obviously didn't care at all. The turbid old eyes were locked on the ship's cannon and the shells that were gushing out. Run away. The old roar sounded. Hancock and the others looked at the rapidly approaching shells, and were stunned at first. The next moment, under the watchful eyes of the public, the cannonball, which was originally astonishing in size, soared dozens of times in an instant. With a huge volume close to a kilometer, regardless of the speed, it has also increased dozens of times. Everywhere along the way, the air seemed to be torn apart by an invisible big hand. A huge black shadow fell from the sky, bringing with it an inexplicable feeling of depression. Look at such a huge shell, if it really gets hit. I am afraid that, not to mention their pirate ship, I am afraid that in the sea area within a radius of several nautical miles, everything will be destroyed. However, in the face of this behemoth, there is no ability to stop it, right? Sister, now, what should I do now? Sonia's face turned pale. They possess the ability of devil fruit, and they also have the strength comparable to that of a lieutenant general. However, in the face of this kind of impact, it is not something that can be easily resisted. Especially in the sea, once the ship carrier is lost, it will be a nightmare for those with devil fruit abilities. You are all hiding in the mezzanine of the ship, I'll stop it. Hancock said suddenly. As the head of the 9 Snake Pirates, she is very conceited on weekdays, but in this life and death situation, she doesn't care too much. However, as soon as he took a step, he was stopped by his mother-in-law. Hancock, are you crazy? Why did you stop it? Don't forget, you are the captain of the 9 Snake Pirates. Anyone can die, you absolutely cannot. Sonia, Godreau, and my old woman, let's do it together. For 9 Snake Island, the existence of Hancock is undoubtedly the survival of the death-free gold medal of Chihuahua. To keep 9 Snake Island prosperous, this is something that must not be discarded. It can be said that on this ship, anyone can die, but Hancock cannot. Sister, my mother-in-law is right, let's go. Lord Hancock, let's go. On the huge deck of the ship, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Looking at the sky, the huge cannonball that kept growing and finally settled on the top of the head. The female warriors of the 9 Snakes who were present clearly had a mortal mentality. However, before they could react, a sharp and ear-piercing sound of a knife rang resounded above the 9 heavens. Black knife, 1 knife flow, 10 burials of thunder. Hum. The crisp sound of the knife sounded like a sudden shock. The violent thunder light turned into a drill, with a posture like tearing the sky, passing through the sky and the earth in the distance. The endless golden light flew, like a long rainbow penetrating the sun, and the air along the way was also torn to shreds in an instant. Whether it was on the 9 Snake Pirates, Hancock and the others, or Wald and others on the Lien Gulaseki, they just saw the whole world, and the dazzling thunder light passed by. The moment that dominates all vision. When he came back to his senses, the golden giant had already traversed the sky and the earth, and collided with the huge cannonball first. The next moment, before everyone could react, a dangerous chi flow spread out in the void. The giant cannonball that was rolled and swooped down had a jet-black appearance, bursting with a penetrating firelight. Immediately, a thunderous explosion sounded. Boom! Violent air waves, and firelight burst into the void. A fiery wave of fire swept through like a tidal wave, and there was a slight stagnation in the air circulating throughout the void. The next moment, the endless flames directly swallowed everything in front of him. The huge sea area seemed to be stirred directly by a pair of invisible big hands. Chapter 606 _ The New 5 Emperors of the Future. Boom! The dull thunder-like explosion sound and the fiery explosion air waves enveloped the dozens of seas in a radius. The waves set off by the entire sea surface are more than 10 meters high. Some of the sea kings hidden in the sea were directly affected by the air waves of the explosion and died in the sea. The Nine Snakes pirate ship, which was under the shock wave, was directly rolled like a flat boat. Looking at the oncoming fire, Hancock was about to step forward to stop him when his face changed drastically. An unexpected figure had already taken a step forward and landed on the deck of the ship. Tier 4 Magic Multi, Defense Shield. 4th Order Magic, Infinite Blocking. Tier 4 Magic, Multiple Weakening of Attacks. A series of magic circles quickly bloomed under Qin Yu's feet. The colorful shields were propped up one after another, covering the entire pirate ship first. The next moment, the incoming flames burst onto the shield. Bang bang bang. The dull collision sound rang out one after another in the outside world. However, with the weakened defense of multiple magic shields, it cannot be shaken at all. Looking out from the inside, it also gives people a feeling of dazzling fireworks. The sudden scene made Hancock and the others startled. In the face of the huge cannonball close to 1,000 meters, they are scrambling to make a shot. Even Hancock is no exception. It's just that they clearly know that this choice will definitely make them die. Even Hancock, who knew armament hockey and the ability of sweet fruit, couldn't stop the cannonball in an instant. It can be said that they have long been determined to die. However, people never imagined that at an urgent juncture, there would be a turning point. This made everyone's tense nerves loosened instantly, looking at the huge skeleton standing in front of the deck, showing endless gratitude. Lord Qin Yu, why are you here? Hancock was startled for a moment, and his eyes became hot. Repeatedly, again and again, to help out, it is just like rain in time. In particular, the man in front of her rescued her from the shame and nightmare. I happened to be nearby. I saw a big movement in your life card, so I came to see it. Qin Yu turned back and looked at Hancock with an excited face. His eyes were deep, and the soul flame jumped. The huge white-boned hands stretched out under the eyes of the public and gently rubbed Hancock's head. You are still too impulsive. Remember to inform me if there is anything in the future. No matter who your enemy is, even if you overthrow the world government, there is no problem. The small voice, at this moment, seems to be filled with invisible magic sounds, giving people a taste of directly hitting the soul. It made the many female warriors of Nine Snake Island in the field suddenly excited. Damn boy, this sentence is so similar. It's exactly the same as what Rayleigh told me that day. This is a love story. Hancock, don't be obsessed. Fuck you old woman, don't get in the way of the concubine. Hancock just entered the state, when he saw the wrinkled mother-in-law approaching. Like a surge of Izumi was instantly interrupted and disappeared. If it wasn't for Qin Yu's presence, I'm afraid she would have to cut her mother-in-law with a knife now. Okay, let me handle the matter here. Wald is still useful to me. He didn't hurt you, right? Qin Yu withdrew his hand, and after a lot of up and down, he asked with concern. No, as the woman of Lord Qin Yu, of course, my concubine will not be hurt by these little minions. If it wasn't for the range, my concubine couldn't get close, or they would have been solved already. Hancock hurriedly Yuhi replied with a face. Hancock, look at your nympho. Is this still the mistress of the 9 snake pirates? She's not even the least bit reserved. You old woman, throw her out. Whoever goes to bed every night calls Rayleigh's name. Looking at the situation that suddenly became noisy, Chin-Yu withdrew his gaze and looked at the sea where the explosions dissipated and the waves rolled in disorder. Who dares to interfere with this captain's good deeds? Walder roared. For him, the first test shot was a huge symbol. Originally, I was full of expectations that I could use Chiwahai's life to declare his illustrious name. I never thought that Cheng Yaojin would walk out at the door. However, watching his attack disintegrated, Wald did not rush to shoot. After all, with a single knife, he can penetrate him with a shell that uses 50 times the power of Momo's fruit. There are very few in this sea, and in Bing Jake's information, there are only a few representative figures such as Hokage Mahak and the 4 emperors Yuhifa in the Chiwahai, able to stop the attack unscathed. Wald, you're going too far. Under the agitation of the magic power on Chin-Yu's body, the whole person was suspended in midair. You won't forget who let you out in the Push City. The cold voice, under the profusion of magic power, reverberated like thunder on the huge sea. Facing the sudden figure, let alone Bing Jack, even Walder's expression changed drastically. It can be said that after escaping from the City University prison, the news he heard the most was not the reputation and deeds of those old guys. On the contrary, it was this arrogant and domineering man who played cards completely against common sense. Without any root cause, in just a few months, the reward amount has climbed to 1 billion skeleton demon. This is an existence that claims to be a headache for even the Navy headquarters and even the world government. In front of the 2 generals, he publicly beheaded the Tianlong people. At the same time, you can also get out of the body. Based on this alone, it is no longer comparable to ordinary pirates. What's more, during this period of time, there was an undercurrent of momentum on the sea, known as the Great Skeleton Demon, who would be the 5th emperor to divide up the New World in the future. In the face of such an explosive rumor, perhaps many forces will ignore it and just act as a joke. But it also shows from the side that the appearance of the Great Skeleton Demon has undoubtedly become a new force that shakes the pattern of the old forces. In front of any force, but not many people are willing to confront him head-on. There are even more rumors that not long after the Skeleton Demon escaped from prison, he boarded the Moby Dick and had an equal conversation with Whitebeard, the head of the 4 emperors. Then, he withdrew his whole body in front of everyone's eyes. This alone is enough to prove that the Great Skeleton Demon has the qualification to be a pirate overlord that is not inferior to Chiwahai, or even surpasses Chiwahai. Right now, the Skeleton Demon suddenly stepped in, and Wald had to cheer up. Chapter 607 This sea can't hold you. The huge sea surface, in addition to the aftermath of the explosion, caused the wave of raging waves to roll back. The 2 sides of the confrontation fell into a dead silence all of a sudden. Even the moment before, the imposing Walder's expression suddenly became gloomy. For Chiwahai, he really did not take it seriously. But the guy in front of him, who can detonate and advance the Chanda prison, still makes him fearful. Skull Demon, thank you for rescuing Walder. It's all a misunderstanding. We don't know that Empress Hancock is old acquaintance with Skull Demon. Bing Jack took the lead to smooth things out. The repressed atmosphere in the arena suddenly eased a little or two. Wald glanced at Bing Jack and said, HMPH, those guys who ran away, but I really wanted to meet you, but I didn't expect that I would meet you here. However, I, Wald, are not someone who doesn't care about love. Since you helped me escape from that hellish place, I won't be embarrassed by your people, but I hope you don't hinder me. Abandoning these words, Wald turned around and planned to leave. Wald, stop, this is not your era. Chin-Yu said lightly. The small voice, at this moment, seemed to be infused with a magical sound, and it echoed on the sea for a long time and could not be dissipated. Walder's stride suddenly stopped in midair. "Wald, don't be impulsive." Bing-Jack's face changed, and he hurriedly persuaded. For Chin Yu's remarks, Bing-Jack did not complain at all. It can be said that he and Chin Yu have the same idea. In his eyes, Wald's appearance looked the same as in 30 years, only 46 years old. However, in the frozen state, the function of the body is also declining. It can be said that the current Wald is no longer as heroic as he used to be. With the changes of this era, even Roger, the Pirate King, has been executed. As Chin Yu said, this no longer belongs to Wald's era. Not impulsive. Walder's face sank, and he roared in anger. "A mere boy who dares to give me advice here. You are a challenge, the majesty of a world destroyer." Boom. With one big step, Wald directly performed a shave and disappeared out of thin air in place. Appearing again, he has come to Chin Yu. The pitch-black armament Hokage, under the rapid spread of his fists, suddenly clenched his fingers and smashed towards Chin Yu. "Boy, others have told you that you have a lot of tricks, so I have to see a mere phantom beast fruit person who has the ability to be a lobbyist for me." Boom. With a punch, the air seemed to be penetrated. Although Wald is a superhuman devil fruit ability user, he is also a grandmaster with the 6th naval style and is a strong taijutsu. In his eyes, Chin Yu was young enough to be able to develop the power of the devil fruit to such an extent that it was very good. As for physical skills, he is simply not as good as him. Seeing that his fist was about to hit Chin Yu, Walder's pupils flashed a hint of abuse. Momo fruit tenfold increase. Hum. The turbulent air ripples were torn apart in an instant. The sudden increase in punch speed, like a teleportation, appeared above Chin Yu's nose. This unpredictable attack method is Wald's tried and true routine attack. In his eyes, there are very few people who can escape. What's more, at such a close distance, Chin Yu had no advantage at all to dodge. However, just as the idea came into being, Wald's pupils shrank suddenly. The endless thunder light rose up without warning on Chin Yu's body. The next moment, before his fist landed, he disappeared in place. Boom. With a heavy blow, it was directly missed. The fist strength brought up was like a hurricane, and it rushed into the sea below in an instant. The huge impact force directly caused a big wave in the sea, and even the sea kings lurking in it were killed by a punch. The violent scene changed Wald's expression drastically. He didn't have time to think about it, and he quickly upgraded Observation Hokage to Ultimate. Behind. The captured figure flashed through Walder's mind. Armament Hokage, his right hand, was crazily entangled, using his waist as a support point, and swept out directly behind him. Facing the scene just now, he was eager to verify one thing. However, the words that fell in his ear instantly made his nerves tense to ultimate. "Have you ever tried being struck by lightning? God's punishment." Boom. The golden thunder, like a frenzy, vented and fell from the 9 heavens. The speed was so fast that the dazzling golden light of the sky and the earth flashed, and the next moment the violent thunder light fell on Wald's body one step ahead. The huge lightning Jinchuriki column is 7 or 8 meters thick. Facing this violent scene, Wald was already mentally prepared. But when faced with the thunder light that fell from the sky, with his weak body and the 9 snake pirates who had just chased down, he consumed a lot of physical strength, and it was too late to dodge. Boom. The thunder light poured on him in an instant, and with the posture of Wan Jun, he went to the sea below, and Yu Wei struck the sky with unabated power. Bing-Jack's face changed dramatically, and he didn't wait for him to say more. A dark shadow rushed out on the deck and landed on the sea first. "Captain Ward, I'll be your stepping stone." Sebastian was the only remaining crew member of the Ward Pirates. It is also a family of giant fish and fish, with an extraordinary swimming talent. Although, in the past countless battles, he has caused blindness in both eyes, but the observation haki he possesses has become faster and stronger. It can be said that Sebastian landed on the spot where Wald fell into the water in an instant. Sebastian, you were good. Wald, who was in the endless thunder, suddenly reacted. In the moment just now, he used armament haki all over his body to raise his defense ability to ultimate. However, in the face of Chin Yu's unpredictable attack, he still took a beat, causing his body to feel a little numb. Directly by the endless thunder, it almost rushed into the sea. Now Sebastian suddenly came to help, which undoubtedly allowed Wald to find a foothold. Boom! With a foot on Sebastian's back, Wald's falling situation was directly slowed down. There was no time to think about it, so I hurriedly performed the moon step and rushed towards the gulassage. When he stepped on the deck, Wald breathed a little. However, looking at Chin Yu suspended in the sky, his face became ashen. Wald, you're old. Chin Yu's deep-set eyes, the flames of his soul suddenly soared. The thunder light on his body rose, like a ghost, passing through the void in a lightning-like posture, and also landed on the deck. Looking at Walder's vulture's gaze, he said, "This sea can no longer hold you. If you still want to continue sailing, I may be able to provide you with protection." Chapter 608 _ This sea can't hold me. Walder's expression sank, and he roared angrily, "So you did so many things, did you intend for me to rely on you? However, it's impossible, judging from your love for letting us out that day, let's forget about the farce this time." Abandoning these words, Wald turned and left without stopping. Walder. Bing-Jack was in a hurry, opened his mouth, but still couldn't say a word. On the huge deck, only Bing-Jack, Sebastian and Gyram were left, and fell into silence. After a short while, Bing-Jack leaned on a cane and came to Chin Yu and said, "Skull Demon, thank you for saving my wayward brother, he was not like this before. Don't worry, I'm just here this time. This is a phone bug to contact me. If you change your mind, feel free to contact me." Chin Yu took out a phone bug with his backhand. The magic power on his body was surging, and the whole person disappeared like a ghost out of thin air. When he reappeared, he had returned to Hancock's ship. It's so fast, even within the detection range of Shenshui, you can only detect the moment he appeared. Sebastian's face changed slightly. Blindness makes his observation haki more refined. So the momentary touch just now is far beyond what other people can compare. No, the most terrifying thing is the skeleton demon. I am afraid that he has the ability to have dual attribute fruit. Only in this way does Captain Walder choose to back down. Guy Lem's face was also ashen. As a devil fruit person, his focus is obviously different from others. One body and two fruits. This is impossible, right? Bing-Jack's expression changed suddenly. As an intelligence officer of the Ward Pirates, he is well aware of the taboos on those with devil fruit abilities in this sea. Except for the landlubber, it is impossible for anyone to master the second devil fruit. It is not that no one has tried it in history, but the final result is also to explode and die. Now Guy Lem is making this utterly absurd view, which is far beyond anyone's expectations. No, don't forget the legend, but that happened. Guy Lem said again. As soon as these words fell, Sebastian and Bing-Jack's expressions changed dramatically. In their minds, the terrifying existence in the legend flashed. As the pirates of the old times, those things are vivid in their minds. It seems that I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Guy Lem said in a deep voice, "This is a remarkable existence, Vice Captain Bing-Jack, I think you have already made up your mind." This. Bing-Jack's dry bark cheeks flashed a hint of hesitation. Looking at the phone bug in his hand, he fell into silence. Lord Chin Yu, It's fortunate that you arrived in time, otherwise we. Sonia watched Chinyu land on the deck again, and a trace of gratitude flashed on her face. In the face of the overwhelming cannonball that rolled down, with a diameter of almost a kilometer. Apart from despair, they are completely helpless. Did you say this? Hancock glared at him, a hint of shyness flashed across his cold and arrogant face, and said, Sir Chinyu, thank you for saving your concubine, but this kindness, concubine, I don't know how to repay. Looking at Hancock, who fell into his puberty, the people present were already used to it. This kind of treatment is only available to this unfathomable young man in front of him. HMPH, I don't think you said that you have to promise each other with your body. Why did my mother-in-law come out with a cane and snorted coldly, hypocritical? You damn old woman. Hancock's face turned cold, and he shouted hurriedly, whoever calls that old man Rayleigh's name every night in his sleep, and says that I want it, disgusting. Dead. Hancock, you dare to tell me, who is watching the bountyling sicken every day, you old woman. Bastard, throw me down and feed the sea kings, I'm going to kill her. The huge deck suddenly became noisy. In the face of these shameful conversations, even Yuhi's ears turned red when he heard these iron-boned female warriors of the 9 snakes. Grumpy. The voice of the phone bug rang suddenly. The scene suddenly returned to calm. Looking at the Navy-style phone bug, a coldness flashed across Hancock's face. Sister, shall we pick it up? Sonia said hesitantly. HMPH, don't answer. Hancock snorted disdainfully. My purpose is just to see Lord Chinyu. Now that people have seen it, why should I pay attention to those hypocritical guys? This, Sonia suddenly concluded, and subconsciously looked at Chinyu. Hancock, since you are here, it is a good thing to go for a walk. Chinyu said knowingly. What's more, I still need you to provide me with wartime intelligence. Chinyu was determined to win the Gulaseki. However, to drive such a huge ship, you also need to be equipped with the ability of Momo Fruit. Therefore, Wald is also indispensable. Lord Chinyu said that he needed a concubine. Hancock held his forehead with a dazed face and Yuhi said, it was the concubine who neglected such an important matter. I hope that Mrs. Chinyu will forgive me. Having said that, Hancock snatched the phone bug away, and his pretty face returned to arrogance. I'm Chiwu Hancock. What nonsense is the Navy talking about? Hurry up and say it directly, don't waste your precious time as a concubine. Looking at Hancock, whose attitude changed quickly, this face-changing speed is really worthy of the title of a woman. Chinyu reluctantly touched the tip of his nose and calmed down. He wondered what the Navy was thinking. Hancock, I am Akainu, this time the main commander in charge of the siege of the world destroyer Wald. The deep voice came out from the phone bug, which changed the expressions of many people. Chinyu also thought that Akainu would participate in this siege campaign, but he did not expect that he would also serve as the commander-in-chief. With his character that he always likes to implement absolute justice, once he fights with Wald, then the ending is bound to sink Wald into the sea. Akainu, if you have anything to say, just say it, don't talk nonsense to the concubine, we Chiwahai are just accepting the summoning order to walk around, don't give me any orders. Break the order. You. Akainu suddenly became angry, and after a long while, he said coldly, not long ago, according to the eyeliner report, Wald is chasing your 9 snake pirates, I intend to confirm this. Also, don't forget, accept the summoning order. The Navy headquarters has the minimum mobilization power for you Chiwahai. Don't forget the place where we meet. Chapter 609 General Candidate Peach Rabbit. I refuse to cooperate with the Navy. Hancock snorted coldly. Rejection. Akainu's face sank as he growled sharply. Hancock, you should know, what are you talking about? If you refuse the call-up order, it will be you after Walder is under siege. Shut up. Hancock obviously did not sell Akainu's account, and said, the concubine is so beautiful, even if she refuses to cooperate with your naval headquarters, she will be forgiven. Wald attacked our 9 snake pirates. I will definitely avenge this revenge. I don't need your so-called Chihuahua recruitment order. Having said that, Hancock did not intend to give Akainu any room to continue talking, and directly broke the phone bug in his hand. Domineering. Or willful. Facing Hancock in front of him, Chinyu didn't know what words to use to describe it. However, perhaps such Hancock is more convincing. Let Akainu, eat a little deflated. Bastard, just bastard, goddamn Hancock, goddamn Shichibukai. It is hundreds of nautical miles away from the 9 snake pirates. 3 warships sailed fast at sea. The awe-inspiring roar echoed on the deck, causing many Navy recruits to look at each other in dismay. Looking at the Akainu, who was wearing a robe of justice and crushed the phone bug in his hand, many Navy soldiers couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. The ghost spider behind him also kept silent. Haha, Akainu, I've said it long ago, you're not slick enough. If you go to be a contact person in person, you're going to make yourself angry to death. Unbridled laughter suddenly sounded. Everyone's nerves were tense at once, and soon they could see a battleship with a dog's head hat on the bow, breaking through the sea in the distance. Seeing such a special shape of the warship, the ghost spider's expression changed, and rushed forward to report, General Sakaski, it is Mr. Karp who has arrived. Looking at the Navy, aside from Garp, the old urchin, even the Admiral of the Navy did not dare to be so reckless in the face of Akainu. However, it is precisely because of this that it can be regarded as a beautiful landscape in the Navy. Looking at the rapidly approaching warship and Garp, who was trying his best to put the senbei in his mouth, Akainu's face was somber to ultimate, and he snorted coldly, 1 or 2, they're all smack-chan oil. It's some useless guys. Pass my order. Gather as quickly as possible, and reduce the encirclement as much as possible. I will sink all the products of the old era into the sea in the name of justice. The rolling roars rolled backwards in the sky in all directions. The hot molten heat seemed to reflect Akainu's emotions, causing the temperature of the huge deck to skyrocket. Leaving these words, Akainu turned and walked towards the cabin under the awe-inspiring gaze of the soldiers. Witnessing this scene, Garp pinched his nostrils boredly and said, Akainu is still the same, he likes to mess around. However, I didn't expect that in order to encircle and suppress Walder, the 3 generals would be dispatched together, and 10 warships would be equipped. This lineup is higher than that of the Demon Slaughtering Order. For Garp's spit, except for Bolt, who had a serious face, the other soldiers on the ship all showed helplessness. Akainu said it ruthlessly just now, but they still know it clearly. This statement is not wrong. As a naval hero Karp, come to participate in this siege mission, in addition to boosting morale. The final effect is to play Chan oil. To make him take action and become serious, except for the golden lion that made trouble with Marin Fando, he has not appeared for a long time. Of course, there are also rumors that if Garp, the hero of the Navy headquarters, really fights seriously. Once again working hard for the Navy headquarters, that will be the Navy's last line of defense. It is also on the verge of dying for the survival of the Navy headquarters. It is precisely for this reason that Karp's Chan oil has a slightly officially recognized taste. Hee, Mr. Garp, you're still the same. The only person who can talk to Akainu like this is you. A clear female voice suddenly came from the deck of the ship. Looking at the black-haired woman who suddenly appeared, and the saber with the golden hilt clenched in her hand, the expressions of the Navy soldiers present couldn't help but change slightly. Only Garp looked as usual, digging out his nostrils and said, Yo, it was Tautu, why did you come here? It won't be the madman Akainu, so crazy that even you were recruited. Among the naval headquarters, the generals represent the highest 3 major forces. but second only to the general, not the lieutenant general. Instead, they are those who are at the top of the lieutenant general and are known as the replacement for the general. Among them, the peach rabbit and the tea dolphin are the more famous ones. Mr. Carp, you misunderstood. I happened to come to this sea area just to pursue the target. I heard from Sister He that you are encircling and suppressing the world destroyer Wald, so come and see if there is anything that can help. Dao the rabbit laughed and explained. As one of the few female generals in the Navy, Tautu can definitely be called Crane's successor. Whether it is strength or resourcefulness, it is enough to convince people. Looks like that guy doesn't know where to go to commit suicide, right? Garp casually flicked his booger. I'm afraid it will be a headache for you and the tea pigs to be responsible for staring at those terrifying guys. However, I see your expression, it should not be simple, just come here to join in the fun. Carp is in the Navy headquarters, which belongs to the position of playing Chan Oil. But it is also clear that the general's post Phil is responsible for monitoring the naval power of the four emperors. In the face of the four emperors, and even the powerful combat power of the four emperors, the general lieutenant general is not an opponent at all, nor does he have the slightest deterrent ability. If he makes a rash move, he will be easily obliterated by the four emperors. Under the premise of the absence of the naval generals, the existence of the so-called generals, who surpass the strength of ordinary lieutenants, became the backbone of monitoring the four emperors. Mr. Garp, I really can't fool you. Tautu didn't hide at all. With her beautiful eyes flowing, she said with a light smile, actually, I came here for Laxus. I learned from Sister Crane that Bastius worshipped a young man as a teacher, and even brought the teaching notes of the sixth form, and even the sixth form's profound truth, back to the Navy headquarters, and waited until Marshal Sengoku and teacher Zepha agreed, and decided to make an exception to be recruited into the Navy boot camp as an instructor, so I wanted to come and see. Quote. Have a look. Carp rolled his eyes and said, Peach Rabbit, you little girl, it's okay to lie to the tea dolphin, but not to me. I think you're here this time because at the highest meeting held not long ago, the two boys, Chingzi and Akainu, made a big quarrel at the venue. As a member of the Navy headquarters, it is rumored that you are the most likely to be the replacement of the general. I think when you hear, Chingzi said that Laxus has the fourth combat power of the Navy, so I feel bad. Chapter 610-Broken Era Gear. The smile on Tautu's face suddenly stiffened. She really didn't expect Carp's revelation. However, in the face of the gazes from everyone, Tautu nodded silently and said, Mr. Carp really has a good eye. Me and the others have been in the Navy headquarters for a long time, and have served in the position of Lieutenant General for a long time. In the headquarters, it is constantly rumored that we are the general candidate, but the position of the general is not our turn. Having said that, Tautu's slender fingers clenched Jin Kunluo's waist tightly and said, if we are facing Akainu and Chingzi, we can be convinced. It's just that I'm really a little unwilling to let an outsider suddenly pass us and become the so-called fourth major force. The slightly long voice echoed on the deck, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Looking at the stubborn peach rabbit on the pretty face, Garp sighed helplessly and said, you little girl has the same temperament as the crane, you won't admit defeat. Chingzi did say this, but Laxus was pulled into the Navy headquarters, and he was only a recruit instructor, not a frontline combat member. What's more, you and the tea dolphins are obsessed with the position of the general. If I were to evaluate, that kid and you are not the same people, but like me, they like to play Chan. As for your bad luck with him, it seems that you can only do it if you return to the Navy headquarters next time. He didn't return with my ship. No. Tautu's tense expression suddenly loosened. For this result, she actually speculated early in the morning. After all, Sengoku was the one who took Laxus into the Navy's boot camp, as a recruit instructor. But he is still not a formal combat member of the Navy, and he is even less able to participate in such an important encirclement and suppression mission. It's just that Tautu was a little uneasy after learning that Qingzi and Akainu made a big deal for Laxus, and couldn't help but run to try their luck without authorization. Mr. Garp, you're right, but Tautu still hopes to fight with him. Tautu returned to the gods. Since Laxus didn't accompany the ship, Tautu didn't delay business and left first. Leaving those words, Tautu turned around and jumped directly onto the sloop docked next to the warship. Immediately, under the helm of two entourages of naval soldiers, they left quickly. Looking at this scene, Karp sighed helplessly. In the Navy, there are very few people who can be indifferent to fame and fortune. Mr. Karp, why didn't you say it just now? Bolt said suddenly. Karp came back to his senses, flipped through Byakugan, and said, "What did you say?" "Tell Tautu, your kendo can't break through the supreme kendo level, your physical skills can't reach the level of the 6th style profound meaning, and you don't have the awakening level devil fruit ability, so you can't become the 4th great power. You are trying to make this little girl cry. She works very hard, but if she is obsessed with becoming a general, it will become a stumbling block." While speaking, Karp waved his hand and said, "I don't want to worry about such troubles. I still want to see that kid Laxus. If he knows that Tautu is looking for trouble with him, I don't know what his expression will be." Looking at Garp, who was disrespectful to the old man, he took out his nostrils and ran back to the cabin to sleep. In addition to helplessness, the Navy soldiers present were more or less inexplicably hopeful. For this kind of competition that rarely occurs in the naval headquarters, it is a great event. 2 days later, Chambord Archipelago, Estuary 13. After the Navy searched 3 feet for the skeleton demon, the pirates disappeared for a long time. An old, slightly sloppy figure, half leaning on the tree trunk, took out the jug from time to time and poured a sip or two into his mouth. The turbid old eyes, under the glasses, flickered with a trace of fine light. "Whitebeard, you guys are here, aren't you planning to come out and see my old friend?" Riley spoke suddenly. "If outsiders hear this, they will definitely be shocked." Boom. The calm sea suddenly rolled up. Under the backlash of the large waves, a shadow of a ship broke out of the water directly. The soap bubbles originally shrouded in this small pirate ship collapsed. A figure like an iron tower, holding a naginata sword, appeared in front of Rayleigh. Immediately behind Whitebeard, there were 2 other figures, which made Riley nodded slightly, took a sip of wine, and said, "Brother Marco, we haven't seen each other for many years. As for the other one, Whitebeard, you mentioned in the phone bug, is it Captain Roger's son, Fire Fist Ace?" Not long ago, Rayleigh was still in the auction house, playing the auction game to kill time. However, the phone bug from Whitebeard obviously dispelled his interest, so he ran here early to wait. After all, Fire Fist Ace, that is Captain Roger's son. Haha, Rayleigh, like Roger, you are still impatient. Whitebeard laughed loudly, took out a newspaper with his backhand, and threw it over. "However, I heard that last time, you and the skeleton demon almost turned the Chambord Archipelago upside down. That kid was really ruthless enough to kill the Tianlong people in front of the general. I originally thought you would be abducted by him, but I didn't expect you to stay here." For the turmoil that day, not to mention the world government and the Navy headquarters, even the major forces at sea were shocked. Not only because of the great skeleton demon, but also because of Rayleigh, the king of the underworld. It can be said that in the eyes of many people, Rayleigh, who has retired for a long time, actually got involved in this crazy thing. Then it should be left with the skeleton demon after the fact. Facing Whitebeard's questioning, Riley did not answer immediately, took the newspaper with his backhand, looked at the headlines on it, and fell into silence. 1 day ago, the fleet led by Admiral Akainu of the Navy headquarters was attacked by the world destroyer Wald, and the 2 sides launched a firefight. Finally, Admiral Kizaru and Admiral Chingzi came to help, and while forcing Wald back, they launched a pursuit. The three generals shot at the same time. Wald has nowhere to go. It's only a matter of time before the Navy wins. Don't you want to go and have a look? Whitebeard asked in a deep voice. It is widely rumored in the outside world that the great skeleton demon released the old guy who pushed into the city's large prison, but it also means that after Roger, the legends of the old era will also decline one by one. The gears of the times are collapsing, but I believe that there are also new gears that are gradually being replaced. Faced with the madness of the Navy headquarters, no one can stop this, otherwise it will only be pushed to the top of the storm and become the target of public criticism. Speaking of which, the Naginata in Whitebeard's hand clenched slightly and said, "This era has already been divided up, and new gears can only replace the old ones. To survive, we can only surrender to our strong ones. Under your feet." Chapter 611-The Last Siege. Submissive to the feet of the strong just to survive, Rayleigh muttered while looking at the newspaper in his hand. The turbid old eyes covered by the glasses flashed a dim light. In the end, he clenched the newspaper tightly, sighed, and said, "Whitebeard, you are still the same, and you don't admit the passing of time." "Haha, it's not that I don't admit it, it's just that this sea still can't hold my pace. Ace came to me in the dark. This is the best fate." Whitebeard laughed and patted it. Tap Ace on the shoulder. "This time, I came to you because I wanted you to train Ace to use the three-color domineering power. He has all the advantages of Roger's blood, and he awakened Conqueror's Hokage very early. He is the king of 1 in a million. Symbol. As long as Ace can grow up, then on this sea, our Whitebeard pirates will be invincible." The sound of rolling waves made the soap trees on the shore tremble. Facing Whitebeard's remarks, Riley took a sip of wine in his mouth and said, "Whitebeard, you don't need to say that. Considering the relationship on Roger's ship, I will also help Ace, it's okay. Said I would stay in the Chambord Islands and not leave, and that's why I did it. However, before I start training, I want to know, Ace, what do you think about this sea idea?" Ace couldn't help but stunned. He pressed the hat on his head with a backhand, and said with a smile, "Of course, it is to help Dad and become the strongest king in this sea. And defeating the great skeleton demon, the wound on my forehead still aches when I think of him." As he spoke, Ace pointed to the injury on his forehead, the corners of his eyes still twitching slightly. When he thought of the scenes of meeting Qin Yu that day and being instantly defeated by Qin Yu, it was an unforgettable humiliation for him. Otherwise, this time Whitebeard won't either, and personally ask Rayleigh to guide the three-color domineering. After all, compared to Whitebeard's pirates, Roger's pirates followed the elite line. Among them, Rayleigh worked as a teacher on board. Yuhifa, who went out under his command, has now become an existence like the Four Emperors. At the same time, in the original book, it only took Rayleigh a year to let Luffy initially master 3 colors of domineering, and his strength suddenly soared to more than 1 billion combat power. Based on these alone, it is enough to show that Rayleigh can definitely be called the domineering enlightener of pirates. Aid Whitebeard to become the king of the sea. Rayleigh glanced at Ace, who was eager to try with a smile on his face, and a trace of disappointment flashed in his cloudy old eyes. He has been staying in the Chambord archipelago, which is the first half of the Great Waterway, to go to the springboard of the New World, in order to find someone who can inherit Roger's will. Originally, in Rayleigh's eyes, Ace, who inherited Roger's bloodline, should be the person closest to this will. But the conclusion he got now made him inevitably disappointed. Could it be true as Whitebeard said, the new generation can only be a stepping stone for the overlord of the old era? "Dad, I just received an emergency report. The Navy's encirclement has been formed. Wald will soon be blocked in the waters of Ooze. Shall we go take a look?" Marco held the phone and hurried aside. Came. Since the Demolition City prison was destroyed, many pirates who escaped from the prison have been defeated again and taken into custody. There are many prisoners in the 4th and 5th floor prisons. But this time, Wald is undoubtedly different. His appearance, and his failure, meant that in the 6th layer of infinite hell, the most vicious people were subduing the law. It also shows that even if the pirates of the old era re-enter the stage, there is only one dead end. It can be said that it has different meanings for the Navy and even pirates. Therefore, this battle has attracted major forces from all sides and is eager to pay attention. Let's go. Quan Dang will send the old man to see the collapse of the old era. Rayleigh glanced at the newspaper in his hand, stepped down and disappeared into the same place. When he appeared again, he had already boarded Whitebeard's ship. At the same time, there are also many forces from all sides holding the same idea as Whitebeard. Facing the beginning of the final encirclement and suppression, he became ready to move. After half a day, it was hundreds of nautical miles away from the Chambord archipelago in the Wuxi Sea. 7 Navy battleships, in all directions, quickly rushed to the northern sea area. On the battleship headed by him, a burly figure like an iron tower stands here, wearing a robe of justice that moves against the wind. As the coach of the pursuit of world destroyer Bundy Ward this time, Akainu looked extremely livid at this moment, looking at the sea in the distance, speechless. On the deck of the huge ship, the Navy soldiers stationed here, looking at the figure of the iron tower, fell into silence all of a sudden. Together with the atmosphere, it also became extremely depressing. General Sakaski, after statistics from the rear, our troops suffered heavy casualties because of Wald's long-range sniping in the encounter a day ago. The gloomy cheeks reported back. Among them, 2 warships were sunk, 130 people were injured and 18 were killed, accounting for 20% of the total number of the 2 warships. The small voice, like a magic sound at this moment, echoed on the deck, tensing everyone's nerves. Akainu's face suddenly turned somber to ultimate, his right hand grabbed the ship's guardrail, and with a thud, hot lava poured out. Directly crushed the guardrail. Bastard, bastard, Akainu growled angrily. 5 of our warships were sunk by a remnant of an old era, and 2 of our ships were sunk with such heavy casualties. This is simply a disgrace to the Navy. Speaking of which, Akainu suddenly flicked the robe of justice, looked around the deck angrily, and continued to roar angrily. You guys, are you going to tell me that this is the strength of the elite Navy? If it wasn't for the help of others, would our fleet be completely sunk? Thinking of the day before, Wald was more than 10 nautical miles away, with the help of ship cannons, plus Momo's sneak attack. The feeling of suffocation made Akainu couldn't take this breath. Afterwards, through encirclement and pursuit, Walder and others were once forced into a dead end. But in the face of Momo Guo's acceleration ability, he still couldn't succeed in one hit, but instead became a super long-distance chase. Originally, according to Akainu's idea, it was unwittingly that Walder, a remnant of the old era, was sunk. Now the pursuit of the sea has shocked the entire sea, making this battle a lot of attention. It made him lose face. Chapter 612-Rampage Walder. What's the matter, can't you answer? Akainu's face sank as he looked at the Navy soldiers in the field. Then the next battle, you tell me how much it will cost, and now the whole sea is staring at us. Isn't it because I plan to sink more than half of the warships again, so I can win with peace of mind? The rolling voices dispersed with the wind on the sea. The ghost spider had a bitter face. When he was assigned by Sengoku to follow Akainu's fleet, he was mentally prepared to be madly sprayed. But I never imagined that the situation would be more serious than I imagined. Now facing Akainu's question, how to answer this, how to go down the stairs. Haha, Akainu, you are still the same, you like to find your subordinates to vent your anger, and this meal is like a Sengoku. A sudden burst of laughter sounded out. The unusually depressing atmosphere that shrouded the deck was relieved at once. In such a situation, only Carp can do such a reckless person. Cap, what do you mean? Do you think that my leadership ability is a problem? Akainu's face sank, and his anger was right. Faced with this scene, Garp still indifferently put shanbei in his mouth and said, No, I'm blaming Zephyr. Why didn't he train a team of elites like Iron Walls? After all, in the face of this old remnant, when we were encircling and suppressing it 30 years ago, you were still playing Chan on the sidelines. You. Akainu suddenly became angry. Facing Karp's remarks, he could not refute it. 30 years ago, in the encirclement and suppression battle, Akainu and Kizaru had just become major generals. Not qualified to participate in this kind of war at all. The main players are Sengoku, Karp and Zephyr. In which battle, if it wasn't for the Ward pirates, a traitor appeared and was countered by a combination of inside and outside. Otherwise, their casualties at that time would have been even greater. 30 years later, Wald's combat power has been greatly weakened, but he still bears the title of World Destroyer. Even Sengoku and the others suffered a big loss 30 years ago, and now Akainu is commander-in-chief, who has lost 2 warships and shouted. It does seem a bit overkill. Okay, don't make a fuss here. If Sengoku didn't let me supervise the battle in person, I'm afraid you will fight first by yourself. The old voice came out suddenly. Looking at the Crane, who was the naval staff officer, the tense atmosphere of the scene was completely relaxed. Haha, Crane, you're still the same, then I'll leave the matter here to you, I'll go back to sleep first. Karp looked at someone to smooth things out, and didn't bother to stay, turned around and planned to leave. However, as soon as the footsteps started, the words that fell in his ears made Garp's footsteps stiff in the air. Cap, there is something for you to go personally, he said in a deep voice. Not long ago, according to the report of the eyeliner, the small Moby Dick that Whitebeard was on boarded has entered the waters of Ooze, and the ships it seems that there is also Raleigh, the Hades. Quote. Don't forget, they are all big figures in the old era. They suddenly appeared here. What kind of mentality do they have? You still need to go there yourself. You have to remember that this contact is not for you to start a war, but to beware of their interference. Whitebeard. Listening to this name, let alone Garp, even the faces of the Navy soldiers in the field changed drastically. That is known as the strongest Sea King in the New World, and now suddenly running to this place, no doubt makes the nerve strings tense. The guy with Whitebeard came to join in the fun too. Garp raised his brows and said, the Peach Rabbit guy came here 2 days ago. It seems that guy is here too. No wonder that guy Sengoku will let you come to supervise the battle in person. For your sake, I'll go meet Whitebeard. I haven't asked for a drink from his house for a long time. Abandoning these words, Karp turned and left. Facing the appearance of the so-called head of the 4 emperors, the appearance of Whitebeard, like Garp, can say such a light-hearted speech, and there is only one in the Navy headquarters. After a while, watching Garp's battleship sailing away, Hikai secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said, Akainu, the next thing is still up to you. I hope you can win this battle a little better. HMPH, a group of remnants of the old era, no matter how many they come, the result will be the same. I will also sink them into the sea one by one in the name of justice. Akainu snorted coldly. Looking at the sea in the distance, he said, this is the new generation 30 years ago. Don't tell me about the powerhouses of the old era. Those are all gears of collapse. Today, even if the King of Heaven comes, I will sink Wald into the sea. The rolling roar echoed on the sea. Looking at the arrogant Akainu, Crane fell into silence and finally sighed. Gulu Gulu, I am Huo Shaoshan, please request a call immediately. The urgent voice of the phone bug rang suddenly. Akainu snatched the phone bug from Ghost Spider's hand and said in a deep voice, what happened, making you so panicked? According to the arrangement in Akainu's memory, Huo Shaoshan should have followed the Qingzi fleet and pursued Wald. Now all of a sudden, urgent contact, there should be something big. Admiral Sakaski, the Gulasiki where Wald is located, suddenly changed the course direction, and they rushed towards you. Huo Shaoshan replied in a hurry. The line of defense formed by Chiwahai didn't stop it at all, and it will soon come to you. A hysterical roar echoed on the huge deck. At the moment when all the naval soldiers and even the generals were nervous, they looked at the sea horizon in the distance, and their pupils shrank suddenly. Come on, here he is. The exclamation sounded abruptly, directly detonating the depressing atmosphere in the field. Looking at the sea level in the distance, the huge ship like an island quickly zoomed in sight. That amazing sailing speed gives people the feeling that stepping on a horse is going berserk. After 2 days of siege and pursuit, he faced the Navy's encirclement net. Wald, the world destroyer who is a remnant of the old era, is clearly at the end of the road. In their eyes, they thought they could force Wald into a dead end by pressing step by step, exhausting his strength. I never thought that at the last moment, he would go so crazy. Take the initiative to attack them. Bang bang bang. The dull sound of shelling suddenly resounded above the sea. One after another, the flames detonated on the huge island like Glossiaki. The blazing flames and the wrapped cannonballs numbered dozens, and a barrage was clearly formed when they shot. Chapter 613 _ The Last Craziness. Bang bang bang. The low sound of shells rang out one after another. The instant the dense barrage appeared, the silence in the field was directly broken, and even Akainu's nerves suddenly became tense. They are no strangers to this kind of surprise attack. Walolo, after 30 years, I still have this kind of treatment. I've been waiting for you for a long time. The crazy laughter suddenly resounded through the sky through the loudspeaker. Through the telescope, it was obvious that Wald was standing above the ship's cannon, laughing horribly. However, little candlelighter, no matter how many times you come, sink me into the sea. If you want my old life, let Garp and Sengoku come. 50 times faster. Along with the awe-inspiring roar, Wald grabbed his right hand with 5 fingers in the air. The shells that pierced through the sky instantly burst into the light of the fruit's ability. The originally dense barrage suddenly increased in speed and volume by 50 times. Like a torrential rain, the whistling sound was loud, directly tearing the void, and plundering towards the fleet where Akainu was located. The speed is so fast, the feeling of black pressure makes Akainu and the others change their expressions drastically. You bastard remnant of the old times, today I will sink you into the sea. Akainu roared. It can be said that during this period of time, the suffocation suffered suddenly detonated. The fruit power that was dormant in the body was suddenly activated to ultimate. Without any bells and whistles, it was a punch to the sky. The burning river Spitfire. Boom. The rolling molten lava rose into the sky like a frenzy, giving people the feeling that it was like a volcanic eruption, and it collided with the shells that hit the sky. Boom. The collision, which was unrepentant at all, instantly detonated the entire battlefield. A thunderous explosion resounded through the sky. The tyrannical explosive force, collided with the molten slurry, directly set off a large sea breeze and waves, stirring the entire sea area. The sailing formation that was originally maintained by the 7 warships was suddenly disrupted. These battleships have been specially treated to have a strong resistance to the impact of waves. But it's equally difficult to completely ignore the impact of the waves. Akainu, what's your plan? Crane asked anxiously after trying his best to stabilize the ship. At that time, she personally participated in the battle against Wald, and she knew exactly what would happen if this guy became crazy. Otherwise there would not be the title World Breaker. What's the plan? Akainu's face sank, and he growled angrily. Of course, it's a surprise attack and sinking him into the sea. Ghost spiders, you led them to resist the cannonball attack, and leave the rest to me. Are you alone? Crane's expression couldn't help changing. However, Akainu obviously didn't stay too much, and with a hideous look on his face, he roared again. Walder, I want to see if your attack is more intense, or mine is stronger. Meteor Volcano. The violent fruit ability surged away like a blowout. Akainu punched towards the sky, and the hot melt turned into a fist cannonball and shot straight into the sky. As Akainu's strongest and largest attack method, in the original book, it directly shrouded the entire naval headquarters, Marine Fando. For a time, the entire sky, the backlogged lead clouds, were directly penetrated by the flames. In the face of Akainu's attack, the forces of all parties, who were eyeing them, also showed solemn expressions. For Akainu's defeat, they have been contemptuous. However, the strength of the general is clearly in front of us, otherwise it would not be regarded as the highest combat power. Facing this kind of battle, Whitebeard, who was 20 or 30 nautical miles away, also sat on the deck and looked away. Not far from him is the fleet where Garp is. It's just that when they meet on weekdays, they pay special attention to Yuhi's two camps. At this moment, they have reached a tacit understanding. As long as there is no interference, both parties will become the masses who eat melons. Bang bang bang. The cloud of lead accumulated in the sky was broken down in an instant. The meteor flames that swooped down one after another illuminated the sea surface in a radius of more than 10 miles, covering a wide area, but it enveloped the huge Glossiaki. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. With the help of observation Haki, he seemed to have crossed the endless sea and locked onto Walder's body. However, in the face of this shocking blow, Walder, who was standing on the bow, laughed unbridled. Haha, it's just right, if you don't have some wonderful means, it's not worthy of my killer. I made a huge cannon that sank the Holy Land Mary Joa for one cannon. Now, let's give you a taste in advance. The rolling voices, along with the loudspeaker bug, rang through the entire sea. Facing the huge attack range of Meteor Volcano, everyone was surprised. However, when they saw the Glossiaki, on the bow deck, the huge cracked mechanism and the huge gun barrel were exposed. The pupils shrank suddenly. The dark barrel is nearly 100 meters long, with a caliber of at least 20 meters. That means that the special cannonballs that are shot, coupled with Walder's Momo fruit ability, are so powerful that once they are detonated at sea, the resulting destructive force is enough to cover a radius of 7 or 8 kilometers. Right now, the warship led by Akainu is heading towards the Glossiaki. Wald also desperately accelerated the raid like crazy. That means, if Ward attacks once, waiting for them, I am afraid it will be a deadly game. It can be said that with this blow, Wald even intends to lose his own life. The madness of the World Destroyer was fully interpreted at this moment. Boom! The huge turning sound of the machine suddenly echoed in the sea. The pitch-black cannon pointed in the direction of Akainu. Facing the invasion of Meteor Volcano, Wald didn't care at all, and his frantic eyes were locked on Akainu. For a time, the stirred sea was shrouded in invisible suppressed air at this moment. A ghostly expression appeared on everyone's face. Wald, don't be impulsive, let's plan well. With the help of the ship's cannon, we should be able to escape the encirclement. Bing Jack's voice suddenly sounded. Compared with the fear and awe of outsiders, he was full of worry. Day and night of pursuit and siege, with the help of Momo fruit to speed up the huge Glossiaki. For the young Wald, perhaps it wasn't much of a problem. But after 30 years, in the ice, Wald did not age. It's just that his physical functions have also weakened due to the erosion of the years. It can be said that the current Wald is just returning to the light, carrying out the final madness. Chapter 614 _ the world's first slash. Valalo, brother Bingjak, are you letting me run away? Walder laughed uncontrollably. I am Bondwald, the World Destroyer. Even if the whole world changes, I will not change, and I will never run away from any enemy. Only, you group of perfidious people will think about running away at the end, just like that day. Run away. Bing-Jack was startled, his old body trembled slightly, and hot tears welled up in his turbid old eyes. Wald, it turns out that you are still in the arms of what happened 30 years ago. When other people were instigated, me and Sebastian, Gyram, Nakin were all trying to save you. But at that time, the Navy headquarters had already been driven mad by you, and sent 2 generals to escort you to the advanced city. At that time, we couldn't save you at all, and we could only secretly send the Gulosiki of your dreams. Maid. Quote. Having said this, Bing-Jack hurriedly walked to Walder's side and persuaded, have you forgotten our dream of going to sea that day? We just thought, on this sea, with this boat, a good for the last free voyage. Quote. In Bing-Jack's eyes, he thought that after 30 years, Walder would feel relieved about what happened that day. In particular, seeing this hard-built Glossiaki will understand their thoughts. However, all this has subverted his cognition. However, as soon as Bing-Jack approached Wald, he was pushed away. Valilo, what 30 years ago? For me, it just happened yesterday. Whether it's you or this ship, the so-called dream of freedom is just a tool for my revenge. What you need to do is to stand by me obediently and watch me sink all these Navy juniors. Over this sea. Rolling laughter echoed over the entire sea. That frenzied gesture made all the forces eyeing them, also showing a hint of surprise. They had thought that Wald was a lunatic, but had no idea at all. This time, it was a lunatic who risked his life. Walder glanced back, and Bing-Jack, who fell to the ground with tears in his eyes, turned back suddenly and looked at the madly attacking naval warship. On which crazy cheek flashed the last madness. The little devil who lights the candle, try the great gift I prepared for the Tianlong people, the name of the world destroyer, it is not that you juniors can understand the despair. Ship cannon, fire it for me. Roar like thunder, mixed with deafening taste. Detonated with a bang when the machine turned to the ultimate. Boom. At this moment, the air that circulated in the whole world seemed to tremble. When the huge tongue of flame was swallowing in the barrel, the huge cannonball turned into a pitch-black meteor, heading straight for the warship in the distance. The distance of more than 10 nautical miles, in ordinary shells, may not be able to reach at all. But the people who are using artillery and sniping at the moment are the legendary great pirates from the old times, who make the Navy, pirates, and even the world government feel in the hands of a madman. Momo fruit 100 times the speed. Hum. As soon as the shells rushed into the air, the speed of the slow loss was suddenly increased by 100 times. However, the most shocking thing is that the same crazy volume has skyrocketed by 100 times. The volume of the shell, which was originally an astonishing diameter, suddenly reached a huge volume of several thousand meters. That overwhelming, rolling down gesture, like an invisible big hand, suddenly tightened their hearts. Once this kind of shell is detonated, let alone this sea area, I am afraid that even a small island can be directly razed to the ground. General Akainu. The ghost spider couldn't help roaring first. They may be able to block the attack of ordinary shells. But in front of them, the giant cannonball that fell like a mountain, but they were not able to stop it. When I thought about it, the previous attack was nothing compared to the one in front of me. Haha, the little devil who lights the candle, did he realize that he was fooled, and now he waits obediently and sinks into the sea. Walder laughed unbridled. In his eyes, it seemed that he was about to see the scene of the naval fleet being sunk. However, this idea just came up, when Akainu was about to explode. A small boat floating on the sea, without warning, sprang out a black shadow. Ultimate Speed, which was walking in the air, instantly fell on the naval ship and borrowed strength. The next moment, without any fancy, the huge black knife in his hand suddenly unsheathed. Jung. The sound of the roaring of the sword roared like a frenzy, and the pale green sword gang ripped out of the void like a training horse. In front of everyone's eyes, the void spanning several thousand meters collided with the huge cannonball that fell. The fierce and incomparable sword gang is like a shocking sky. Thousands of meters of huge cannonballs. In the void, there was a trace of stagnation. The next moment, cut in two. This is the world's first slash. The huge cannonball, glowing with green light, glowed with fiery flames. In an instant, a deafening explosion resounded without warning. Boom! The thunder exploded, and there was a trace of stagnation in the air circulating in the sky. Immediately, it was directly stirred by the tyrannical explosion. The endless flames rolled back, like a 12-level hurricane-like air wave, directly covering the sea surface with a radius of 7 or 8 kilometers. The huge waves of more than 10 meters rolled back, as if the hands of the god of the sea were turned into the hands of the sea god, and they were photographed head-on to the warship. For a time, the huge sea surface shook everyone's nerves as if it had fallen into the apocalypse. 20 or 30 nautical miles apart, all the forces still watching the battle, except for the older generation, who have seen Walder's crazy old-time characters with their own eyes. Seeing all this, other people have a dry middle lip and the urge to swallow saliva. It can be said that this blow was not in midair, and was cut in half by Hokage Mahawk with the strongest slash. Once it falls on the sea, even if a kainu is trying to resist, I am afraid that most of the warship will be sunk. The madness from the old days is not something that anyone can resist. No, it's impossible, my killer was actually broken, who broke my good deeds? Wald's expression froze, and then he roared in disbelief. In his eyes, this is a trump card for destroying the Holy Land Mary Joa, and it should have already done a heavy damage to the naval fleet. Walder, let's retreat quickly. The person who shot just now is Mahawk, the eagle-eyed Mahawk who is known as one of the 7 Marshalseas and the world's largest swordsman. Bingjak hurriedly spoke again to persuade him. This time the Navy came prepared, this is not our era. Chapter 615 _ the three will come together. Not my time. Walder was startled. However, above the twisted old face, a maddened color quickly climbed again, and Bingjak was suddenly pushed away. The next moment, the roar rose again. No, Wald, won't lose. Whether it's 30 years ago, or 30 years later, I'm a spoiler who makes the world feel fearful. You can take one of my moves, then try taking the second move. Walder strode to the side of the ship's cannon, and the fruit ability of his right hand surged wildly, and suddenly shot towards the gun barrel. Momo fruit 100 times more. The roar was like thunder, tensing everyone's nerves again. However, before the sound of cannonballs sounded, Walder let out a muffled groan, and blood rushed out of his mouth. After a day and night of fierce battles, the 76-year-old old body was able to fight until now, and it was obviously a miracle that the naval fleet had been forced to this point. What's more, during the battle, he used the fruit ability to speed up the huge Glossiaki all the time. For Wald, who is almost running out of fuel, it is undoubtedly the last straw that crushes him. Hawkeye, who had just landed on the deck of the Navy ship, glanced back coldly and said, I have completed the task in the agreement, and the next thing has nothing to do with me. Facing Hawkeye, who returned the black knife to its sheath, Crane fell into silence. There may be other ways to block Wald's crazy blow just now. Hawkeye's shot is undoubtedly the quickest and the least casualty way. As he said, this blow is enough to make up for the mission requirements of the Chiwahai Agreement. Next, he has no need to shoot. You bastard. Akainu's expression turned somber to ultimate on the warship that was charging at the forefront. As the commander-in-chief of this mission, he was led by the nose again and again. At the moment, Hawkeye was the first to take the shot, occupying his limelight. For a kainu, this riding on a horse is a shame. Wald, let's run away. Looking at the rapidly approaching warship, Bing Jack still urged without giving up. However, as soon as the voice fell, before he could react, a biting cold wind swept the entire sea without warning. Hum. At this moment, the air seemed to have fallen into stagnation in an instant. Under the piercing cold wind, endless ice crystals quickly spread out under the tumult of the explosion. The speed was so fast that it covered the entire sea in the blink of an eye. The violent scene made the expressions of the people on this sea change drastically in an instant. Some Navy soldiers who were still trying their best to control the warship to avoid being sunk by the waves immediately showed ecstasy. Yes, it is General Qingzi, this is the Ice Age, we are saved. I don't know who was the first to exclaim. In the face of this joyous shout, it immediately attracted the warning eyes of many sailors around. After all, this time it was General Akainu as the head coach. It was indeed under the sneak attack by Wald just now and was directly pressed and beaten. As soon as Qingzi made his move, he froze the entire sea and rescued them from the explosion. In this comparison, the merits of which are stronger or weaker can be clearly judged as long as the eyes are not blind. It's General Qingzi. Bing Jack's face suddenly turned ashen. And Akainu has already made them devastated. Now there is another one, the General Qingzi, who is chasing after them all the way. That's a dead end. Yo, Brother Sakaski, you seem to be in a little trouble and need my help. Endless golden light quickly swept away in the distance. Finally, it came to the warship where Akainu was located, showing the figure of Kizaru. Looking at the one-time three generals of the Navy, the same stage appeared here. The expressions of the other forces present suddenly changed. Wald lost, the old era is finally coming to an end. Whitebeard stood on the bow deck of the small Moby Dick, watching the scene in front of him, and said first, sure enough, the people who can walk in the early part of the era, except for besides us, there are very few. Quote. Whether it's an old legend that reappears or a supernova that's emerging now, it can only survive if it is attached to us. This is the law of the sea, and no one can break it. The slightly long-sounding voice echoed on the deck of the ship. Marco and Ace fell into silence. Rayleigh's turbid old eyes glanced sideways at Ace, and sighed helplessly. After taking a sip of the spicy drink in his mouth, his brows furrowed. Vaguely, he seemed to have overlooked something important. However, before he could get to the bottom of it, Akainu became violent. He suffered losses again and again, and was out of the limelight by the other two. For him, it was a huge shame. Angrily raised his eyes, locked on Wald's body instantly, without any bells and whistles, he suddenly started. Damn old remnants, die for me. The burning river Spitfire. Boom. With a punch, the fiery lava wave exploded like a frenzy, turned into a river, and attacked Wald in the air with a galloping posture. Originally separated, the only remaining distance of thousands of meters, under the blow of anger, was only narrowed in a few seconds. Seeing this violent blow, Wald didn't even have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He quickly backhanded in his pocket, took out a small cannonball, and frantically activated the devil fruit ability in his body. PFF'd. A mouthful of blood spurted out. The body like an iron tower almost fell to the ground with a sway under the watchful eyes of the public. The small cannonballs clutched tightly in his hands splattered all over the floor. Recalling that 30 years ago, in this kind of battle, Wald was able to pat his chest and say he was not afraid. However, the battle situation in front of him now tells that the years are not forgiving. Feeling the fiery gust of wind, the wave of molten lava that swarmed like Izumi, a bitter smile flashed across Walder's face. Are you going to die? He lost. The legend of the old era has come to an end again. The remnants of 30 years ago should not appear. One after another evaluation voice came out from the mouth of every force leader. However, just after these words fell, 3 violent shouts suddenly sounded. EPUB Destruction Hammer. The profound meaning of traditional Chinese medicine boxing. Big hit. The 3 figures took the lead and stopped in front of Wald. The oncoming hot melt was directly stopped by them. The violent scene made Wald stunned for a moment. He looked up hastily, and caught 3 figures, causing his pupils to shrink suddenly. Chapter 616 _ Be ruthless and don't even spare yourself. Captain Walder, you've been waiting for a long time. 30 years later, we can finally find an opportunity to keep us out of the way. Nichen said first. Compared with Sebastian, the fish man standing at the forefront, Naken's injury may not be very serious. However, in the face of Akainu's angry blow, he unleashed a flaming fire. For them, there is also a lot of pressure. Most of the lava was knocked into the air, but it also burned their bodies. Let the air, filled with an inexplicable smell of barbecue. You guys, why are you doing this? Why aren't you running away? Wald was startled. Looking at the 3 people who sacrificed themselves to block him, he was willing to leave himself behind again, just like in 30 years. No, Captain Ward, we are companions with the dream of free sailing. We have waited 30 years, and now we can't wait another 30 years for Captain, and we have to complete the final voyage together. Guy Lemhe slammed the heavy hammer on his shoulder with his backhand and said with a smile. However, compared to the burns on his body, it was obviously a bit miserable. You, what are you doing? Run away quickly, the 3 admirals of the Navy are here, we have no chance. Walder frantically roared. I'm the world destroyer, I'm Wald, and I don't need your mercy. A hysterical roar echoed above the sea. No, we still have a chance, I believe he will come. Bingjak grabbed Walder's arm and looked at the pirate flag that had already been burned and turned to ashes. Perhaps the Ward pirates have been annihilated in the long river of history from today. But it does not mean that their navigation will be hindered. Akainu splattered all over his body, like a flaming meteor, streaking across the sky and hitting him directly. Seeing that his attack was stopped again, Akainu roared when his face was hideous. A group of remnants of the times, I want to see today, who can take you away, K9 Euhelion. The fiery lava quickly rolled away on Akainu's fist. Facing the scene on the deck below, the scene of playing a warm card, without any hesitation, punched out. Roar. The huge molten giant dog was condensed out of thin air in an instant, and with a posture like tearing the void, it rolled away to Wald and others. Feeling the blazing heat, the crowd of melon eaters watching the game, their nerves suddenly tensed to ultimate. Akainu, be careful. Crane suddenly exclaimed. The violent scene made many people look stagnant. The next moment, the wind was like a tidal wave, and endless yellow sand fell from the sky without warning. It turned into a huge sandstorm tornado, and collided with the incoming lava giant dog. Boom! The lava and yellow sand burst open, setting off a large storm. The face of this sudden attack, Akainu's expression couldn't help but stagnate, and observation hockey quickly spread around him. Desert Sword. A cold and arrogant voice suddenly sounded behind Akainu. When the yellow sand condensed into a human form, a fierce and unparalleled slash slashed towards Akainu in the middle. PFF'd. For a time, the hot melt splashed, and the tower-like body was directly cut in half by the waist. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Looking at the figure emerging, many people's pupils suddenly shrank. Is it Rock Doll? Isn't this guy killed by some laxus? A black fur coat with a neatly combed back. There is also the arrogant cry with a cigar in his mouth, and the golden hook in his left hand, which makes his identity more apparent. Kazuna, he exclaimed anxiously. Watching the dead come back to life, with a kick in the middle, the former sand crocodile rock doll, one of the seven seas, made the crane inexplicably uneasy. Got it. The yellow monkey's expression changed slightly, and the same guess flashed in his mind. It can be said that from the very beginning, Huang Yuan never made a move, and he was wary of an unknown possibility in his heart. At the moment, the appearance of the sand crocodile Crocodile, and the death report received not long ago. That was a long-lost figure flashing in Kizaru's heart. The yellow ape with the ability to shine fruit instantly turned into an endless light Madara and appeared behind K-Rockthal. The index finger of his right hand turned into a pistol-like stance and pointed to the back of K-Rockthal. However, before he could open his mouth, the scolding that fell in his ears made Kizaru's nerves tense. "You bastard, if I knew it earlier, I wouldn't compete with the president, and learn the two-color domineering. However, by being able to get the two generals together, my mission has been completed." The inexplicable words spit out, instantly tense the nerves of Kizaru and Akainu. Before they could react, a familiar voice like a jingle rang out over the 9 days. "Super magic, Skyfall." The ice-cold title voice seemed to be filled with endless magical sounds at this moment. In the face of this scene of continuous violence, the people present hurriedly looked up to the sky. Wearing a pitch-black cloak, covered in a Mukuro stance, with deep-set eyes and a flickering soul flame. Under the sudden surge, the magic circle that had already been stretched out exploded in an instant. Boom! The fiery energy shock swooped down in the sky like a tidal wave breaking a bank. Akainu and Kyabu, who were in it, suddenly shrank their pupils. They never thought that the long-lost skeleton demon would rarely show up once, and even his own people would not be spared when he was so ruthless. Boom! The high-temperature thermal shock, like a waterfall scouring, instantly enveloped the sea with a radius of 1,000 meters. The three of the yellow monkeys who were inside obviously didn't think much about it. The first thought was that they turned into elemental madness and fled around. In the face of the superposition magic that lost its target, the high-temperature thermal energy directly bombarded the frozen sea. The sea that was frozen in the first place was quickly melted away. The huge impact, the waves that set off, rolled back around in a rolling posture. The warship that was a little closer was directly overturned on the sea surface. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. The cranes, who were separated by a few nautical miles, suddenly changed their expressions and shouted in a hurry. Immediately informed Qingzi, the big skeleton demon and the sand crocodile rock doll to intervene in the middle of the encirclement and suppression. His attack was not aimed at Akainu and Kyabu, but to lift the frozen state of the sea and let him do his best to prevent the enemy from escaping. A series of orders awakened the absent Navy soldiers. The ghost spider grabbed the phone bug and hurriedly called Qingzi. A Walder has already made them deal with the scorching. Seeing that victory is about to be won, but now a big skeleton demon is killed in the middle. It was a nightmare for them.